wait for it. There it is. Go get to the rescue right there. Click on that. That's the one. They need you. Fallen Aces. Click on that one. Go for Cat Cafe Manager. Everything from Freedom Games.
Yeah, pretty much. Everything for free. We keep putting them over, and for no reason, because they're great. So yeah, get all those games. Wish them small.
And hey, while you're spending money, have you ordered your E3 merch yet? If not, check out e3expo.com/shop and get your order in today.
Bomber jackets on point.
Very nice, very nice.
Long enough for us.
I know,
Did you
right?
notice the sleeve length?
I know, it's very, very nice.
I like it.
Now, the big question is, what would you guys like to see here from Bandai Namco Presents House of Ashes?
I am not familiar with this, but I have been told that it is scary. And I don't do well with scary.
Yeah.
You know, you asked about Code Miko. It's scary. I don't know if I can handle that.
That's a different kind of scary.
Yeah,
That is a much different.
So I'm looking forward to, you know, a different kind of tone of presentation.
Would you like me to hold your hand during this presentation?
Sure, Puppy. I'm okay with that. You know, that's great.
Yeah, if you're not familiar, everybody, of course, this is going to be Bandai Namco. I still want to say Namco Bandai. It's when they changed the name, it was years ago, and it still screws me up to this day. Of course, they're working with Supermassive Games on the Dark Picture Anthology, a whole bunch of different horror games that are coming out in quick succession. This is the third one in the anthology already. But if you didn't know that before, of course, Supermassive made Until Dawn, breakout PlayStation hit that then led to this deal. Of course, they've done Madame Badan already. Now they did Little Hope, and now it's time to see more of House of Ashes. And so, yeah, this one's an exciting, different thing, right, Jackie?
Well, I have been closely monitoring every trailer, any gameplay that has dropped on this, and it is so scary. Like, I really cannot emphasize that enough. But for me, it has to be more than scary, and it has to be more than these terrifying aliens. For some reason, the story really hits with me, and you can also tell that they've invested so much time into this project. And I'm really hoping we get more of an inside look here, because I am on board, and it is bloody and gory and aliens, and yeah, I'm here for it. Yeah,
of course.
Not your cup of tea, but 100% mine.
You know what? Hey, I'm here for it, though. I'm
Drink
going to watch it. I'm going to watch it all.
So,
Opposing forces get dropped into a Sumerian temple, right? And all sorts of supernatural elements start popping up. We'll see what's going on here. So, Golden Boy, we need you to get psyched up. We need you to get ready for the skits.
I'm excited to watch it. I'm going to be very scared. I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to go over to the media area, and I'm going to, you know, I'm going to be horrified because it's going to be great. It's time, though, for our next presenter. And here, with their 2021 E3 presentation, is Bandai Namco Presents House of Ashes.
Hola, Luis. ¿Qué tal? El último directo ya por fin. Y hablando de... Empieza.
An ancient horror, and alone is extremely brave. Or extremely foolish.
¿Qué se hacía? Se había cortado.
Arms, or will it be a case of each man for himself?
Get down! They're up on the ridge! Return fire!
You teeter on the edge of an abyss. Your survival depends on the choices you make. They will be as a compass, guiding you through the unknown.
Dark Pictures Anthology, House of Ashes. And I'm joined by exec producer Dan. How you doing?
Hello.
Thank you for joining us. Right, so let's start at the very start. We're going to be talking about House of Ashes.
Ahora, joder, no sé qué está pasando, que se está
for those that don't
cortando.
know, tell us about the Dark Pictures Anthology.
The Dark Pictures is a series of narrative, story-driven, branching horror stories. Each one is standalone. They each tell a different story, completely separated from the others, but within the same universe, so there is connection between them all. House of Ashes is set at the end of the Iraq War in 2003, with links 4,000 years ago that set the story up.
So tell us more about the
es el que para el vídeo.
I suppose, within
Y por eso, pues menos mal que me da
It
cuenta.
starts off with a military unit. They've got some new
Dark
technology
Picture
that can look for weapons of
es
mass
el
destruction
primer juego de
underground.
inicia.
They think they've identified something in the Zagros Mountains in Iraq. And then, as part of that, they come into conflict with an Iraqi unit. Then there's a pitched firefight, and then the two groups are plunged underground. There's an earthquake of some sort, and it's revealed that there's a hidden temple underground. You know, these big, massive structures, but these different groups, they're all separated. Radio contact is lost, and they're submerged in this black darkness.
Where on God's green earth have we landed?
And then they're going to start hearing things and seeing things, and people are going to start disappearing.
What the just happened?
So this time it's a very real threat.
All of the Dark Pictures games, they all pull something from real life or from history, from fact. What's the case with the myth or historical part of House of Ashes?
So we love looking at and reading myths and legends and stories and doing our research, and we know our fans love it as well because there's something that they can link into afterwards, and I love doing that when I'm playing games or watching movies myself. So this one's set 4,000 years ago, the Akkadian Empire, and this terrible evil that happened. We had this self-proclaimed god king, Naram Sin, and he essentially cursed his people. He sacked this temple and brought famine and devastation to his own people. And so a lot of the history is lost, but we've done a lot of research about it, and then we had a lot of happy accidents that linked into the story we wanted to tell. And the fun thing for us is we get to do our own take on it. We get to twist it, and obviously we've made our own truth from it.
At the end of the sneak peek, the trailer, we saw monsters. Tell us a bit more about what's going on there.
The military unit that you're playing as, they don't really know what they're coming up against. They're not human, they're bigger, they're larger, they're faster. The team aren't going to know if there's one or two of them, or hundreds or thousands of them, and that's kind of the threat with this. You know, they've got guns, maybe they could try and take one of them down, but maybe there's another one around the corner, or maybe there's a group of them, and maybe they're going to get ambushed.
Maybe they're like a cluster.
Exactly,
and
yeah,
they all pop
a
out at
nest,
once.
as it were.
Yeah.
And it's been really fun to work on and see these things move around and how horrific they can be. They're different to us, they perceive the world in a different way. Getting little snippets of it in the darkness, and did I see that? Was it something that moved? Or is it actually just one of the other soldiers that's stuck in the catacombs?
Who's there?
We like to try and misdirect people on things, you know, that did you see something, did you not? And that's a great thing within horror, that you think you're going to be scared right now, and we're not going to scare you now, we'll scare you in a minute when you're not expecting it.
It's always coming.
Yeah, always.
So should we expect a huge amount of peril in the game?
Definitely. We love to do it. You know, it's fun for us to work on. As horrific as it is, and we know that our fans love it as well. So yeah, there's at least 60 unique deaths, and there's a whole ton of variation on that as well. So Merwin and some of the others, you're going to see different things happening to them depending on how you play it. You know, get ripped and shredded and torn, and because there's a firefight, there's going to be bullets flying as well and all kinds of stuff. And it's not just the deaths, it's the gore that goes along with it, and you know, lots of blood.
Wicked. It sounds absolutely terrifying. I'm in.
Not gonna lie, man. It's pretty bad.
What differences have you made, or changes have you made to the gameplay and mechanics for House of Ashes?
We're always evolving the Dark Pictures. We listen to a lot of the feedback from our fans, and also our team, what they want to do, how they want to push things forward. So we tried some stuff in Little Hope with you know, more camera control, 360 cameras at certain parts, and we've really leaned on that again, and it really works well. In House of Ashes, lots of the game is set underground, and so these sort of corridors, which are really tight and oppressive.
Creepy.
Yeah, indeed. So we've had to learn, because you take away the fixed cameras, and that takes away some opportunities for horror. But we've had to learn new tricks to scare people and, you know, ramp up the tension and you know, the chance for jump scares, which we know some people love. We've also got a new torch mechanic, so you know, it's military themed. So these guys are going to be walking around with weapons, with torches mounted on them. We love the lighting that we do, the sort of really inky black darkness that we have, and sort of the contrast to the bright areas. And so you're going to need to lean on that torch to allow you to see where you're going, what the threat is, and that kind of stuff. We've also done things like added difficulty settings to this game. So in Little Hope we added you know, QTE warning icons as an example, and we've got some really good positive feedback about that, but also some people want to turn that off. We want to allow you to play the game in your way. So with our accessibility settings and difficulty settings, if you want to have a more casual experience, you can change those settings. Still, most of your characters are going to end up dead, but you know, that's
spoilers,
what
yeah,
indeed.
but that's what we come here for. That's okay, we can deal with it. So I've got to ask, what was it like working with Ashley?
So Ashley was fantastic. She researched Rachel, she understood her when she came on the set. It's so refreshing, she knew her inside out. And Rachel is a flawed character, so she brought that through so fantastically. The rest of the cast were fantastic as well.
When we were looking for Joey, Salim helped me.
And you didn't tell me this because...
You'd flip your shit.
we want you to connect to these characters and understand them as humans. We want them to seem real because they're real to us. You know, we spend a long time designing them, and I don't mind if you hate any one individual character because you don't like everyone in real life. But maybe you'll like them when you see the journey they go on.
Maybe you'll like them once they're dead and you feel bad about it.
And you feel bad about it, definitely.
Yeah.
But also we want you to save them. We want you to try and save them. You know, we know that some people want to get everyone killed straight away, and that's fine. That's their playthrough. Cool. That's what they want to do. But you know, can you get everyone out alive and save as many as you can?
There's a lot of replayability there.
Indeed,
goes on forever. I like that. So, last question. Favorite scene?
Favorite scene. So, Salim, our Iraqi soldier, and Jason Kolchak, one of the Marines that's there. There's a way that can play out and a sort of contest between them, and you can make it go in a number of different ways.
The enemy of my enemy is my friend.
It's really emotional. Seeing them film it, I was lucky enough to be there, and then seeing that come through in game, I think we've got something there. I think that's gold. And then, of course, I love scaring people, so I love the jump scares. I love the moments of tension that we bring. We can't hold you in that moment, so we've got some fantastic jokes in there as well to allow you to relax for a moment before we scare you again.
To take your mind off the imminent threat. I like that. Dan, thank you so much. This has been really cool to talk about, and I'm sure, you know, I'm excited and terrified in equal part, and everyone else is just excited, I'm sure of it.
And it's been a real pleasure to speak to you, and I can't wait to get it into people's hands.
It's going to happen.
Dark Pictures, House of Ashes. Lo que trae el primer juego que nos anuncia Bandai Namco.
Before we dive in to House of Ashes, see how scared you got, of course, we want to thank Razer for being one of the E3 2021 sponsors. Of course, giving us these tired old blades nobody cares about. But this Blade 14, RTX 3080 built right in. Of course, the Razer
I'm
chip.
taking that.
Thank you so much. No, I'm taking that.
Okay, we'll fight.
Okay, well,
we've done it before.
You know what? I'll take the hand-me-down. I'll be little brother. I'll take the outdated. Nobody wants these anymore, right? Doesn't worry. Golden Boy, you just saw the Dark Pictures anthology.
Yeah.
Your first glimpse of it. We have some reactions from you.
Oh, you do?
They were recording you. They said you were a little scared, not terrified.
Not terrified, thankfully, because it was just a normal trailer, which is fine. There's my face.
You're unsettled for sure.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, you don't like that. You
don't like that. No, not a fan of that one either. Nope.
The nope.
Yeah, I think that was one of the jump scares in the trailer. I got the willies there at the end too. Yeah. I am not crazy about horror. I was actually talking to the crew at the back, and I said, it really takes a very twisted mind to come up with these things. But it is impressive, though.
Yeah.
Right? You heard there in the interview, Dan saying I love the jump scares. I live for the jump scares. It's
60 different death animations is what that was something he wanted to make sure, because of course this is a choose your own adventure. If you've never played a Dark Picture anthology, right? You are moving characters in a third person. You jump around. It's like you're watching a movie. You make choices. Those choices lead to different permutations, different setups, different settings, which leads to different deaths or no deaths if you're really, really good. But that's the idea, right? Is that you're playing and your own horror movie is developing, and then gives you the reason to replay it.
Yeah. Also, a pleasant surprise for me was that Ashley Tisdale is in it. I didn't know that going into it, which I was like, wow, this is definitely an upgrade from High School Musical. This is definitely a quick turnaround. Big different genre. But yeah, and I think also because we had the VO panel yesterday, which was great, and it just goes to show, right, like the impact that video games are having. Hollywood stars coming in, lending their voice, lending their face, their acting, their skills to this, really bringing these characters to life is just going to add even more layers to this horror.
That's a huge thing. If you've never played before, performance capture is a huge deal for Supermassive. They go through, they use the facial animation. They want you to feel like you're watching a movie. So we will see soon enough how the Dark Pictures anthology pans out this time around with House of Ashes. But for now, let's toss it over to the one, the only, Jackie Jane.
Brothers in arms, or each man for himself. Survival depends on choice. Will you find the path to save everyone, or be lost
in the darkness. I'm sorry, I'm just a little excited about this title. Dan, I saw you taking lots of notes. You were taking notes about the mechanics, actually, but I know you're really thrilled with the story as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I am here for this. So.
Well, I'm a big old history nerd, so I was super stoked to hear more about the setting. You know, it's really tying in a lot of ancient lore about the Akkadian Empire. You have Naram Sin, this guy who declared himself like the god king of the Akkadian Empire and desecrated this temple, and now it's coming back to haunt us in modern day. It's also interesting to use the Iraq War as a setting. It is definitely a fraught time period and event during which to set a game, but also I think a rich sort of backdrop for horror into this setting, because you're tapping into sort of Mesopotamian mythology of Pazuzu, this king of wind demons who's tormenting all of these soldiers, and I'm really excited to see what they can do. Look, I told you I was taking notes, I did some research. I'm excited. I can't wait to experience all 60 death animations.
I know the 60 unique deaths. Okay, Avi-chan's face right now is just killing me. Avi, what are you thinking?
I'm thinking that if I'm ever trapped in like a dark cave, I'm probably gonna stick next to Dan because he understands what we should be doing. King of what now? You're looking up all this history on Pazuzu?
He's the king of wind demons, no big deal.
Come on, everybody knows that. I don't even know what the king of wind demons is. What was it?
Oh, he's Pazuzu.
Oh my goodness, okay.
You may remember him from The Exorcist as well.
Yes, okay. Avi, you were obviously a big fan of the server like Dan, just like, I could go on. Exactly. I was like, okay. But Avi, you know, we've been talking about Resident Evil Village like at length. We both like horror survival, but also like when someone's playing with us, and I thought that it's great that it's co-op, so we can be scared together while we play.
Yeah, I'm just gonna be sitting behind Dan and watching him play, because that's exactly what I did with Until Dawn, because I'm like, cool, I can't hold a controller and, you know, try to guide these teenagers to safety. I'm going to step on a branch and individually kill them. But Dan was going into like the history of all of it, and I'm going into like, oh, 2003, that's a little too close. And I didn't pass all my history classes, but I hope that Pazuzu doesn't, you know, pop up anywhere in a textbook. But something that was really interesting for me when we were going through the trailers and going through that little dev talk is that they showed us Pazuzu. They showed us the monster. They showed us what it looks like inside the cave. So there's part of me wondering, like, usually with horror games, you don't show people the scary right away. So I'm wondering if maybe there's like a hidden layer of something else that they're not showing us yet that's going to catch people off guard, thinking that they're going in going like, I did my research, I know everything.
I know how to deal with a Pazuzu, this is easy.
So you two would fall into the depths together, and then I would somehow be stuck with Michael, and he'd be like talking about JRPGs, and I'd be like, oh my goodness, we're in a world of her right now.
If I make a deal with the devil, I can turn into a very attractive protagonist, and then I could probably possess Pazuzu if I do negotiations like you can in SMT5. No, anyway, like, one thing I want to say about this one is the free cam controls. That's different for Supermassive, so I'm going to wonder how that works, because I feel like they're very in control of camera angles and what you see before you make choices. I'm sure there's like transition phases where you actually make your choices and all other stuff. It's just something new from them, so I just want to see how that plays out, especially when I'm with a bunch of other people trying to get very scared.
And Damon, I know you're all about retro games, but I also know you love a good story. I know for me, I felt like this had a lot of heart. There was dialogue that we saw, and it really hit me to my core.
Yeah, and they showed the actors doing the motion capture. I love horror movies, I love horror games. I'm a kind of a gore hound. I love blood and guts, and I love kill gags. Whoa. So like, I'm looking forward to see all the inventive and clever ways that Pazuzu is going to kill our soldier friends.
Oh boy. Oh boy. I just like saying Pazuzu, even though it's absolutely horrifying. Yes. Anyways, Goms, I can't talk. Games have changed and evolved so much over the years, and with those changes, so has the coverage of our favorite games. Outlets like PC Gamer, IGN, Polygon, and GameSpot have all led the way in gaming coverage, and for the first time ever, we've assembled the editors-in-chief of all those organizations and our Voices of E3 series. Take a look.
Hello, welcome back.
Espérate, este es el único juego que va a presentar Bandai Namco.
I run gamesindustry.biz, which is one of the world's biggest video games business websites. And joining me today to talk about E3 and the future of games in general are some of the biggest names in the video games media, from IGN, GameSpot, Polygon, and PC Gamer. But rather than me do the introductions, I'd like to pass over to the panel. Hello, everybody. Who are you? What do you do? How did you get here?
Sure. I'm Christopher Thomas Plant. That's my full birth name. It sounds like Christmas plant if you say it really fast. I'm the editor-in-chief of Polygon.com, and it's a website.
Thanks. This is Evan Lottie over at PC Gamer. I'm the editor-in-chief.
Hi, everybody. Tina Amini, editor-in-chief of IGN. I don't have a cool Christmas Twitter name, but I do have a really cool Halloween Twitter name that someone gave to me, which is Tina Aminiville. So that's all I got.
Hi, how you doing? My name is Randall Franzi. I'm the editorial director from GameSpot. I go by Randy in this country because while it's okay to be called Randy in America, if you say that anywhere else in the world, you will be met with sniggers. You can't say, hi, I'm Randy to anyone else out there.
Yeah, it's definitely true for us in the UK. So ask to all of you here, what does sort of E3 sort of represent to you? I don't know if I want to pick on somebody, but Randy, maybe.
It's difficult to separate E3 as a professional working in the industry and as a fan. I've been in this industry for so long that it's E3 to me is usually just a lot of late nights, being overworked, not having enough sleep. But I think outside of the professional stuff, I think E3 for me. It allows me the chance to feel like just a regular old fan of video games. I still get hyped about stuff that gets revealed. For those brief shining moments of those major press conferences or during like a key announcement, I can sort of forget that there's all this work that I need to do around this big event and just like be a fan of video games again.
Yeah, having that in-person reaction, like you're typically sitting, if you're at a press conference, which I think probably for many of us, we maybe stopped attending them in like a physical capacity and maybe had like, we're in a war room of sorts with our team. But in general, just being able to sit next to your team and everyone's like reacting and then quickly scrambling to their keyboards again because they need to be typing up the news. That's obviously the primary element of it. But for me personally too, it's a bit of a reunion because we'll all see each other in person, but it is that opportunity to have that one space, that 1 week. We all agree we're going to take that time and be in one space together and be able to connect.
Yeah, I think E3 is the center of gravity too, right? I mean, in an environment, we saw what happened last year what happens when there's not an E3, right? Everyone kind of goes it alone, and there's definitely some pros to that, but I think from a coverage perspective, we like having, I mean, you guys probably all share the same attitude. We like having as much time as possible to, do an interview, cover something, and not be rushed off to the next thing back to back to back. There is kind of an efficiency for us, I think, and the viewer, the consumer, and having everything neatly collected under one roof for, 3 or 4 days. The intensity and kind of spectacle that comes as a result of that, I think, can be genuinely fun and exciting. So, I mean, at least in North America, it looks like E3 will continue to be that center of gravity for the foreseeable future.
For better or worse, you get reminded very blatantly that, like, this is a human enterprise. There are some real people who are putting in some, like, long hours trying to make for the best possible event for all of us.
Well, this year is a digital event, and there are lots of questions about what E3 becomes in the future. There's a lot of chatter about that. So what do you hope to see from it come sort of 2022 or beyond that? What are your hopes for the future of E3, and what would you like to see?
It has to become more social, and I think that is a thing that E3 was like leaning towards. I think it's like important to remember like what function E3 served back in the day. In the 90s, video games were for children or dorks, and mainstream publications covered it once a year, and all video game companies need to put all their money into one basket and pray that the New York Times wrote that story, right? Now it's the opposite. I mean, sure, newspapers are still catching up, but otherwise, video games are the center of culture for young people. I think The Guardian wrote about that. And because of that, E3's purpose no longer has to be, hey, let's get people excited for this one day. Let's put all of our money into it. It has to be something different, which it seems to be more celebratory, right? Like that kind of has become a purpose. So I hope that whatever we see it become in the future is, like you said, Chris, more inclusive. That it is this thing that is bringing people in, that is the center of gravity, that is serving a larger communal purpose.
And it is significant, obviously, despite the drawbacks of everything, of all of us being in a pandemic that's going to be running about 2 years long by the end of this, or hopefully just 2 years long by the end of this. I think it is significant that when we are being in this digital format now, I think it's nice that more people can connect. Obviously, it loses some of that social element. So I too, like Chris, hope that that is retained, and I selfishly hope that we all go back in person. But I think keeping some elements digital does help kind of connect to a broader community. And there can be various aspects of that. Obviously, the press conferences are something that are typically digitally available to begin with. But are there some of those panels that have been introduced, or some other versions of connectivity or versions of celebrations that is something that people can experience in person or at home too, to feel like they're a part of that entire celebration, of the festivities, of the news breaking, and they can get a sense of that same excitement that they may be feeling home alone because for whatever reason they're not able to attend.
I'm kind of hopeful that the live aspect becomes a lot more like Comic-Con in the future, in which it's much more a celebration of games culture, and community while you're there live in person. I think the ESA, as everyone pointed out, has been sort of moving towards this hybrid thing where half of it is still behind closed doors meetings with retailers, and then they're trying to introduce more people into it, and they can play some games and look at some big booths. But I think Comic-Con does that thing where it does service the fan aspect of it really well by having that focus on the show floor of the culture, things you can buy, arts you can interact with, while still having that sort of hype vehicle and talking about the next big thing. So if anything, I would hope that they push that sort of live community aspect more when you're there.
How far do you think they should go in that direction? Like, would you just like to see them take a full-on Gamescom approach where there are, potentially tens of thousands of people, having a full public day, dedicated to, that's really servicing the public more than the trade side, the business side?
Yeah, I think a traveling E3 show.
Como este partido que con vosotros
visits multiple cities.
Some people will hate you for that one.
Luckily, I'm not in the USA. But yeah, and I realized that PAX does this to a certain extent as well. But I think what E3 could be is still have that spotlight on the biggest and the best things, and allowing people to as I said, get hyped, get excited about
Porque tampoco tiene mucha esa.
And just to build off that really quick, I think the thing that developers are going to have to ask themselves now, and we've really hit this turning point culturally, is can we let go of
que por nada nos voy a tener
right?
aquí.
Because Comic-Con works because they put talent in front of people. But when you put talent in front of people, suddenly they have leverage. And that means they're worth more money. I mean,
Hay un
just
mínimo,
very
y si
blunt.
no van a mostrar
And that goes
juego,
for voice actors, that goes for designers.
Tampoco
And
voy
I
a tener
think there
contando
is a
que
version of
la
E3
peña cuente
in
la
all
vida de los
conferences that
videojuegos
makes a lot of sense where
y
we
cómo
don't need to
funciona un
have vertical
videojuego como
slices
tal,
for every game. They
entre
cost a
comillas,
ton of money,
lo
they
que
take
mi
up a ton
opinión
of
es,
hours, there can be a distraction.
si nos van a hablar,
But
si
if
nos
these people
hablan
become
hablado de un
celebrities in
juego,
their own right,
tampoco voy a tener aquí
that can take their place. That can create these
escuchando
conferences
chapa y
and
tampoco
rounds.
puedo
I would
decir
love to
cuál
see
es el
that. I think it
próximo
would be
porque
healthy
es el
for
último.
the industry as a whole, for people to actually be, again, in front of their games, not just behind.
Entonces,
Evan, actually, I love it. You mentioned the Gamescom model, but as a
Vamos.
business journalist, I actually find I love E3.
no es la
I love
primera
all
vez
the
que me
excitement
pasa
of
de
it, I
un,
love the buzz of
de
it.
un
But
de
as a
estos que
business
presenta un
journalist, it's a
juego,
nightmare.
o peor,
it's
o
just
peor
like it's
que
busy
como
and
Take-Two,
noisy,
que
and I want to
Take-Two
talk about
no
sales
nos
figures,
enseñó nada.
right? And it's there's almost two parts of me. There's the fan
Si
that
me
wants to
equivoco,
see
pues
the
lo
big
siento,
booths
pero
and the
vamos.
exciting, all the noise and stuff, and then there's the part of me that wants to have a little quiet place, have a cup of coffee and a bit of Wi-Fi and a bit of networking. So I think I would like to have a sort of business show and a consumer show that sort of sits side by side. I don't know how you I don't know how you fit that into the LACC, but I think that's something that I would like. But I mean, at the same time, they're sort of moving to that sort of hybrid model anyway, and I think transition is always tough. But I'd love to see that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Is that something you're interested in?
I mean, with the kind of competition that we've referenced here with PAX, right? It's just essential that these events have a true purpose that is contemporary and really self-aware of what else is happening, the other options people have. I mean, when you go to PAX, right, you see families. I see lots of, thinking back to the PAXs I've gone, it's like mothers and daughters and fathers and sons that have like decided to take their vacation to this event because they're a huge fan of, GameX, and they want to hang out and be a part of that, right? And I mean, like, it's interesting to get a sense of like our kind of multifaceted feelings in this conversation, because like GDC is probably my favorite event of the year because the press is not the focus at all. There's not like big announcements or anything. And yet we as press get some of our best material out of GDC because it's an environment where game developers are just talking to each other and we're kind of listening in. And it's an environment where game developers like have their guard down. They're not, engaged in the deep secrecy that I think Chris is referencing there very often.
Es que no tiene pinta que cuenten nada más.
Talking up their design and their narratives and like, what's kind of interesting to them in the moment. And that's a great environment for interviewing and discovering stuff. So I don't know. I mean, whichever direction E3 takes long term, I just think it sort of has to not compromise and sort of meet in the middle of all this stuff, but really have clarity and identity.
Well, I'm very much aware of the time, so I'm going to wrap up with a sort of fun last question. So, what is a memorable E3 interview that you can share with us?
Mine's a little sad in retrospect, but I still very much enjoyed the conversation that I had. It was before No Man's Sky came out, and I interviewed Sean Murray, and he was so excited to talk about this game and to talk about all the procedural generation and that work that was going into it. Alongside that interview, he had one of his programmers like showing me behind the scenes how that procedural generation worked. I thought it was such an interesting way of doing an interview where I was actually seeing behind the scenes elements of what was actually going into the game while he was speaking to them in what was a really eloquent way. So it's only a little sad in retrospect because obviously there are a lot of moments where developers kind of maybe regret, like, did I say too much? Did I accidentally promise something that I wasn't intending on promising? But I think ultimately at the core, for me in that experience, like I could just see his passion and I could just see his pride for what his team was working on. And I think that there's something still, really genuine and true and heartfelt about that.
Yeah, I mean, for me, my favorite interviews are usually the conversations that happen at restaurants or bars afterwards, because E3 interviews tend to be...
Voy a tapar esto. Un juego, chicos. Es lo único que puedo decir. Un juego. Que es que no es que digas tú, wow, ha sido mucho condensado, ha sido uno, poco condensado. Que en parte, a ver, lo de que hablen poco del juego me parece guay. O sea, es muy al DS, pero, ¿no? ¿Algo más? Sé como Nintendo saca mucho. Déjate para algo guapo para el final. Supongo en parte también está lo de Dragon Ball nuevo. Que claro, como lo lleva Bandai Namco también, pues supongo que eso ya... No sé si es que lo han dejado como ya pues, se ha dicho en Nintendo, ya no decimos más. Que si ha sido eso, me parece un poco eso. Deja un poco con pinzas. Pero bueno. Pero en fin, yo no voy a ser quien diga cómo va el tema, porque yo soy el que menos pinta aquí en esto. O por lo menos a mi opinión, soy el que menos pinta en esto. Así que nada, se ha terminado esto ya. Este es el último del E3. No hay más. Ya se acabó. Fue bonito mientras duró. Pero... como todo llega al end. De esto no iba a ser menos. Así que nada. Espero que os haya gustado este último Nintendo Direct. Bueno, este último E3 Direct. El E3 ya no tiene nada más que ofrecer. Así que nada. Siento que ha sido pues 35 minutitos cortitos. Entre que me he echado unos partidos y demás. Procedo a la despedición, me voy a duchar y me voy a dormir. Porque ya no hay nada más de E3 y pues eso. Así que eso. Ha sido un placer tenernos aquí en este E3. No sé qué ha pasado. Vale, un momento que tengo que ahora. Así que nada, eso, que un placer. Espero que os haya gustado. Y nos vemos en el siguiente vídeo.